And let's see if we've learned anything. Hopefully, I'm actually live without staring at it for 4 seconds waiting for it to go live. And so, good after morning, good afternoon, good after evening, everyone. It is Thursday. And where I am, it's Thursday evening. We can call it that from the hands on the clock, but the sun is still a good 25 degrees above the horizon and shining right in here, just mangling the light. But here we are, it being Thursday and it being 7 o'clock in the evening, my time. It's time for ADRAMADA, another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything. And you're here and I'm here, and if you're not here right now, you're probably here right now in the future, in my future, watching this on archive, because lots of people do that. And nobody shows up live and online. Thank you for the three of us that are here, me, Tullowit, and Patricia Grace. Hi, guys. But, yes, it is 1080. I was playing with cameras and audio this afternoon, this evening. I'm guessing my audio is a little bit low right now, but you know my rule that I break every single time. No, don't make changes with less than 10 minutes to go. So about 20 minutes ago, I started messing around with audio and wasn't making any strong headway. So I said, well, let's not mess with it anymore. And then 2 minutes before showtime, I felt the need to make a foolish change. It took 1 minute and 45 seconds. Never do that again. Except I will. Excuse me. No illness, no nothing, just a little throat roughness. Other than the huge storms we had here, thank you, Tullowit, a week ago or so, we haven't seen much in the way of rain. And pollen is heavy and thick, and the air is thick, and it's thick here. Hey, well, it is Thursday. This is ADRAMADA. We get together once a week at this same very time and same very channel for Tech Talk. Topics are wide-ranging: computers and IT, to security, to energy, to automation, AI, music and movies, electric cars and electric guitars, and all points in between and beyond. And we're not afraid to delve into non-technical topics if you feel the need. If you're keeping count, this is show number 19 that made it on the air. This would have been 20 if it wasn't for the problem last week. So let's get that out of the way real quick. Sorry, I'm watching messages go by. I'll come back and talk about that. So last week, my son and I had to go out of town on Tuesday and Wednesday. We were back by Wednesday afternoon, and for whatever the reason was. Nonetheless, we're all settled in, or got all of our stuff back in the house, and there was just one thing that was left, and we said, yeah, we'll get that tomorrow. And then the girlfriend comes over, and they're watching TV or something upstairs, gaming, and this crawler comes across my TV that says huge storms, and I looked at their radar, and they were about 45 minutes north of me drive time. I said, well, I'm not going to take this with all too serious. And then things kept getting more and more dire as the minutes went by. And a half an hour later, I said, we've got to take care of some stuff in the backyard. We've got to get some things tarped up and whatever. So I interrupted the kid and said, hey, meet me in the backyard. We got stuff to do. And we battened down the hatches, and it hit. He said, right about the time it was due to hit, it was nice out, maybe a little sprinkle, and he said, we're off to dinner. Okay, go have a good time. And seconds later, the wind just erupted like hurricane force. I'm watching my trees shake. I'm watching things get blown around. I have some large items on wheels on my back porch, and one of them rolled halfway off the porch. I had to go rescue that and get it secured in. And then it just came down. Massive amounts of rain, massive winds, flickering power, and then no power. I sat there with something with my phone in my hand. Well, I'll game for a couple minutes till it comes back. And when it didn't come back a half an hour later, I came to realize it's not coming back. And the phone was still working. A kid called up and said, hey, we're down here 7 minutes away. We're trapped in a parking lot. Nobody can move and no lights. And I said, well, when you stay safe, and when you get back, we'll break out the generator. And that's what happened. So we got back not too awful long later. We fired up the generator and plugged into the house and ran that generator for the next 48 hours with spotty occasional internet service. I was using my phone as a hotspot. So was everybody else in the neighborhood. And so there was no 5G service left. And I had 1 bar of LTE service. That's enough to get on a text forum and type a message or read a message, and that was it. I tried to work like as much as I could at work on Thursday and Friday of last week, and I got a fair amount accomplished. I had enough local files here that I could edit scripts and do some other things, but not nearly as productive as I wanted to be. Finally, late Friday night, power came back and internet came back with it, so it was affected. Whatever their intermediate routers were affected by the same power failure as we all were. And as soon as power came back, I had internet again. And within a half a day, we were all put back together and functional at the house. We didn't take any damage except for just the most minor piece of fence damage. Kid and I went out there with a hammer and 2 nails, fixed it, and we're good. But I took a cruise around the neighborhood. Someday I'll share the pictures with you. Huge trees, big 3-foot diameter stuff falling all over the place on cars, on houses. Sometimes they didn't hit a house. And of course, down fences and down everything. One of the things that I did note is we've been through heavy weather not too far back. And so there was a lot of roofs replaced. And I didn't see a lot of roof damage this time. I think everybody who needed a new roof got one, and the older ones were still in pretty good shape. But it was something. So Thursday night rolled around, and well, there's not a prayer that we're going to do a show. So that's kind of the good news. I got a show all in the can, ready to go. And that's what we're doing tonight. I know, that was long. So when last we saw each other, 2 weeks ago, we installed Background Remover, a program for removing backgrounds of images. We did it in Ubuntu Linux, and since then I have used it several times to make banners for company YouTube presentations and other things. It's kind of cool. Today's project, on paper, if I just read it off, we're going to install a web server on a Raspberry Pi running a version of Linux. Big deal. Well, it's not the fact that it's a Raspberry Pi, and it's not the particular flavor of Linux that we're running that matters, because this web server will install on all kinds of platforms, x86 and Macs and ARMs and SBCs and whatever, and it'll run on all the major Linux distros, so no big loss there. It's the web server that I want to knock you out with. And the name of the web server, can I get this up here, is called Angie. And I'll tell you all about it when we get to the project portion of our day. Tech news of the week. So I'm going to slide past some of this because some of this is like 2 weeks old now and no longer impactful, but you'll see what I mean here. So first thing that I wanted to share with you, something that I ran across and I thought, wow, this is just the greatest thing. And I hadn't given it a second thought for the last 2 weeks. It's the greatest thing. And then tonight I looked at it and I said, I'm not happy with this link to take you to something that I want to show you. And so I went off and I searched for a better link and found it and said, you know what? The thing that I found that's really cool and very interesting is very cool and very interesting, but there's a lot of really cool and very interesting alternatives. So what I'm talking about right now, let me bring that slideshow back up again, is a cheat sheet. I know you can't see this very well, but I'm going to put the link up for you. and you will be able to see that then and there. Go to your own thing. The image viewer that's built into OBS doesn't have a good zoom feature in it. Chat GPT cheat sheet. Okay, that's in the chat feed. This was created by a gentleman named Zain Khan, Z-A-I-N. And there are many like it with differences. But long and short, this is a great little tool, and there's tons of alternatives out there. And let's switch back in. For using Chat GPT, some ideas on how to use it and some languages you can use and prompts and things like that. As much disdain as I hold for the current crop of AI products, I cannot ignore them. I've got to be conversant in them, and so I said, well, let's drop this disdain, this hatred for them. And while I'm not ready to embrace it, I'm certainly ready to gather some knowledge about it and be able to communicate with it. So that's my starting place, and I'll go from there. But there's a lot of other ones. If you just look up Chat GPT cheat sheet in your favorite search engine or whatever, you shall find. I did find, as part of that search, what I believe, after some light searching, to be one of the best AI newsletters. There may be better. I haven't done a very thorough search. But superhuman.ai, join superhuman.ai, seems to be pretty darned impressive as far as getting sources and articles and things like that. All right, I want to talk about one more thing here, and then I'll dive into the chat feed, see what's going on there. This is a philosophical question. This is a moral question. It's an ethical question. I know the answer to it, but it's got to be voiced. So the question is it wrong to be joyful when someone's voice is shut down because you disagree with them? Maybe you're not the one who shut them down. You just, there's something out there, and somebody is saying something you really don't like, and then for whatever forces may have induced themselves, that voice is now silent. Is it wrong to be joyful about that? When this happened, and I'll describe it, I was initially, but then I thought about it and said, look, my voice has been taken down sometimes for reasons that it just seem utterly capricious. Somebody doesn't like what I said, and maybe more than one person, so they'll downvote me into oblivion or whatever, and I hate that. And this person who is espousing positions that I'm very much in disagreement with, his voice somehow, some way was silent. So I want to mention, let's get briefly into the Red Hat kerfuffle, which is now a week and a half old, something like that. Red Hat, by far and away the leading commercial, there's no such thing, enterprise Linux solution. Because you can't sell Linux. You make Linux, you configure it the way you want, you build it the way you want, and you provide it, and then you sell additional products. Those are free. The Linux is free. So my support, there's something that somebody's got to pay for. This extra feature that I have developed exclusively on my own, if you want that, you may purchase that or purchase license to it. So IBM owns Red Hat, and Red Hat has the largest installed base of enterprise Linux in the U.S. government and the U.S. military marketplace. After that, in the U.S. commercial marketplace, and mostly in the world marketplace, the next leader is some kind of Debian distro. By and large, it's Ubuntu, but there's other Debians out there, including Debian, raw Debian. All right, so IBM, big dollars. Red Hat, big dollars. And I've mentioned Red Hat a couple weeks ago because they've had a fairly large amount of layoffs. And whoever is behind the replacement of the project manager there has gotten together with his team, and they said, you know what, there's too many what they're internally, and some of it leaked out, leeches out there, and they are using that term to describe distro vendors, distro creators, distro maintainers that leverage Red Hat's enterprise work, and that's the least of the big deal. Users, right? If they are saying that anyone who uses their product and doesn't contribute back in some way, not always their word, but leeches. And that's a pretty horrible way to approach things. They are kind of, Red Hat, infamous for poor communications, poorly worded things, poorly timed things. Well, that's the star of this show. Well, so they make this announcement a week and a half ago, whatever it was, and it immediately bifurcated the Red Hat distro industry, and to a lesser extent the whole Linux industry, because what they did is they said, you can no longer get distribution files from us. Now, on the face of it, that is contrary to the license that comes with Linux core code, but that's for attorneys and smarter people than me to work out. We'll let that go. Nonetheless, that's policy now, and it changes the way all of the distro vendors and supporters will have to do things. And initially there was a panic among the Rocky Linuxes and the Alma Linuxes and some others, even Fedora. Said, oh my gosh, how and when and where are we going to get source files that we can either do our own spins on or do clones, for lack of a better term. And so while that's going on in the back offices of the big Linux maintainers, another thing is going on. This bifurcation, this split of two camps. The camps that say Red Hat is doing the right thing, and the camp that has the opposite feel. The interesting thing about that to me is the pro Red Hat position, folks. There was only two categories of them. One, they were staff and employees of Red Hat. They were writing their own articles, and I love what Red Hat did. Oh, by the way, I work there, but this is my own personal opinion. That's not unfair. I've done that with my employer. I've posted things, answers to questions. Said, look, I don't think that I'm being biased here when I say our product is better than some other product. Okay, that's not unfair. The other element of people that support the Red Hat position are companies and organizations who directly benefit from a relationship with Red Hat. Everybody else, I'm sure there's some weird exceptions out there, said, Red Hat, you guys are crazy. What are you doing? This is the third time since your inception that you have utterly pulled out the rug under everybody. And that, of course, includes the vendors like Rocky and Alma and some others. So I got involved in a discussion thread that was begun by an employee who said, this is my personal take on it, and here we go. And this thread, with its hundreds of gives and takes, is kind of where I got this idea of who's for this and who's against this. And I actually communicated directly with the author of the initial article 2 times. Hey, let's talk about this outside of this very split batch, and maybe you can answer a question for me. Who knows? I seem to disagree with you vehemently, but I want to listen to you. I want to learn from you, and maybe you'll be an interesting guest. And what he communicated back to me was unpalatable for me, and so okay. So I did my 2 little pieces in there and read a lot of the stuff and supported a lot of the stuff and downvoted some stuff. I shouldn't do that, but I did. And fine, went to bed. Next day I went in to see what was going on in the thread. The thread was gone. This was all done on LinkedIn. And I had noted that the author had written a number of other articles on LinkedIn in the past. So I said, well, let's go see his other articles. Maybe somebody's doing there. All gone. And so I went and checked his account on LinkedIn. Gone. So there was that initial joy. He said stuff that I disagreed with, and he's gone. Ha ha! But that's wrong. That's just really, really wrong. I did a little bit of digging around. I didn't come up with an answer. To my mind, there's only 3 explanations. The heat got too hot, and he said, I'm out. It could be that his employer said, hey, you know what? You're not putting us in the best light. We already got bad enough communication problems. Do me a favor, pull that. In fact, you probably ought to, just pull out altogether of LinkedIn. Maybe I'm speculating here. I have no idea. And another possibility is LinkedIn looked at that and said, this is not our usual kind of discussional social media, or this is more like traditional social media sniping and attacking and things like that. And they may have been the ones to pull it. I don't know. So I hope the guy comes back. His name is Magnus Glantz, Glantz. And he does seem to still be listed on the employee rolls at Red Hat, unless they, just haven't taken the name off to hide whatever. But all right, there's lots more going on in the Red Hat world and things like that. I will tell you this one final thing here. On the 24th, 5 days ago, when all this was really starting to make steam, I kicked off a message to Greg Kurtzer, the CEO of the organization that creates Rocky, and said, dude, you got to come on my show. You got to talk about this. And within 24 hours, I got a hard yes. Yes, I will be there on your show, not this week, but next week. And cool. So I'm all set to have Greg on next week. And then today, Greg did his weekly panel with Skip Groob. Some of you know Skip and Greg together. They've been on my show together. And a president or CEO of the Rocky Enterprise Software Foundation, RESF. They usually have a bigger panel roundtable, but it was just those 3 today. And I had written about 20 or 25 questions that I wanted to ask Greg when he came on the show. And I didn't tell them to him yet. And I was going to spring them on him during the show. And he addressed almost every one of them. And the ones that he didn't address after what he had to say was there was no need to ask him that. So I kicked him off a note tonight and said, you know what? There is no point in you turning up next week. You've already got a bigger audience. You've already answered everything that I was going to ask. Let's just hold off until your next big release at Rocky or big news. And I want you on my show giving it up on ADRAMADA before you give it up anyplace else. I want to scoop the world. So I don't have a show for next week yet. It's too bad. It was all lined up and ready to rock. All right. Let's go and see what's going on here. Who's here? And what are they saying? Patricia got on way early, 4 hours before showtime. This looks like a response to somebody else whose message dropped off. So, yeah, again, this show was already in the can. I would have liked to do Our Hell, but I didn't want to push this show back any further. Already done it once, so here we are. Patricia Grace, prices for SSDs are getting better. You looking to buy a new PC or sticking with Pies? Both. I will get a new laptop this year to be sure. But you're right. I have bought SSDs lately, and they are just unbelievable in price compared to anything that they've ever been in my life. So it's good stuff. Thank you for the good audio report, Tolowit. Patricia Grace, what's the difference? That's okay. Sorry, I forget. Between something like Rocky Linux and Ubuntu, what are the major Linux categories? I'm forgetting the word, not distro. Well, that is the word, distro. Categories, there's families, but it all comes down to there's the 2 big dogs. Okay, there's Red Hat and all the derivatives that come from that. Fedora, CentOS Stream, Alma, Rocky, Oracle made a spin on it, and they may wind up being players in this whole kerfuffle. And then there's the Debian family, And what makes them, and then there's other families like, well, of course, there's different architectures, but they spin those categories for it. So, ARM, A-Arch, the ARM architecture. There's Red Hat distros that run on that, and there's Debian distros that run on that. There's Arch Linux, which is a family unto its own. SUSE is a family unto its own. But let's just stick with the two big dogs right now, Red Hat and Debian. Now, what makes them different? Internally, very little. Okay, if it runs on, if an application runs on Debian with a couple minor changes, because they do twist up the kernel a little bit, you may have to adjust a little bit of code in the app, but by and large, it's going to work. And that's why when software creators make a version for Debian, it doesn't take them very much effort to say, oh, make a fix, and it's ready to go out of the box, and run on Red Hat. So what's the bigger difference then? The bigger difference is the stuff that gets packaged with it, that's packaged for it, and that's enabled with it. For instance, all of the Red Hat distros come with SE Linux installed and ready to turn on with a single command. Yeah, SE Linux, Secure Linux. And we can get into Secure Linux another day. Debian doesn't do that. However, it's not a big deal to set up Debian to do SE Linux. You install the SE Linux modules, one command or two commands, and then you run the same command and turn it on, and okay, now it's SE Linux. But Ubuntu, by and large, has looked at their customer base and says, most of them don't want or need this, and so it's kind of excessive to build it straight into the core distro. On the other hand, U.S. government and U.S. military, being primary customers of Red Hat, they say, if we can, turn it on for us before you deliver it. But all right, one command, I guess we could do that ourselves. So that's one thing. Then there is the package managers that come with it, that are approved for it, that are preferred. So historically, Debian has used APT or apt-get, advanced package thing. Advanced package thing, I like that. And that's what's used to install, track, and remove programs. It's not perfect. It's got problems. Ubuntu has been migrating toward another package system called Snaps. And there are other ones that you can install and use, pip and pip3 and some things like that. In fact, we're going to use a package manager today on Rocky that doesn't exist in Red Hat unless you manually install it. Red Hat's preferred installed method or package manager is yum/dnf. Dang newfangled, something like that. And it's not just an installer. The job of package managers is to install and to manage the package as it's installed. Keep it from conflicting with other packages, or allow it to interact with other packages. When we go to update it, the app manager is responsible for getting the right files updated. When we go to remove it, remove the right files and don't do anything to damage other packages. So again, apt isn't perfect at that. Neither is DNF or yum. And so that's the other really, really big differentiator, is their preferred packaging system. There's lots of other small pieces, of course. Patricia installs on different platforms. Yeah, does that too. I found lots of cheat sheets, not the one you showed. That was a tough one to find. If you add Zain Khan to your search, ZAINKAHN, you're going to find them in his Twitter feed. You're going to find him in his LinkedIn feed. And I found one copy of it in that link that I posted out that I've lost, and I'm not going to go find. I got other things to do. The only comment before my first comment was Tullowitt using street slang to communicate that he'd be here. Okay. Back to tech news. How are we doing here on time? Just about 6 seconds. I want to get back into AI and talk about another AI platform that's out there now. There's lots, right? There's Dolly, there's ChatGPT, there's the other Dolly, and many others. So there's the ones that built into Bing and browsers and things like that. They are all, to some degree or another, proprietary. Some are very proprietary, some are not so much. We use the term game changer a lot in this industry. Many of the articles that I read consider what I'm about to tell you about a game changer. Maybe. But there is an AI engine out there called Falcon. Traditional spelling. Falcon space AI. And let me give you an article on it. Because what makes this one different than all the others? Speaking of all the others, by the way, trailer for the return again of Futurama is out, and it's going to start somewhere around the 24th of July. Futurama coming back. So what makes Falcon AI special is it is 100% free and open source, and they claim, I haven't gotten into the guts of this well enough to prove it or disprove it, that they are totally transparent in their operations and their sources and their code and their. And the really, maybe this, one of the really fascinating things to me about it is it's a large scale AI model developed and operated in the UAE, the United Arab Emirates. It's trained on a large number of tokens, over 1 trillion. Now, what's a token? Think it as a piece of data, but it's not complete pieces of data like you and I think. A token is usually some number of characters, somewhere between 5 and 10, and it might be a portion of a word. It might be the back half of a word and the first couple characters of the next word. That's AI technology that I'm starting to get into and understand, but I'm a long way, so I don't have the answers to all that yet. But Falcon AI, worth looking into. Not going to do that one. Experiences of the week, Storm and Power. I do got to do this one quick story. I got a pie. It is the pie that I'm using right now. No. It is the pie that I'm using right now, but not the boot disk. I made a small change to this disk on this pie 2 weeks ago. Half an hour before I was supposed to leave for the wedding of one of my friend's kids. And it was horrible. The symptoms were difficult to understand. I'm so far back now, but let me tell you what caused it, and that's so weird. I got a hard drive a used hard drive that I purchased from someone, not because I wanted the hard drive, but because I wanted the data that he was offering on there. So, yeah, that's what I want. And I plugged it into an adapter and plugged that into my Windows machine, and my Windows machine said, there's nothing there. I thought, okay, well, maybe it's got a Linux partition. I'll plug this into a Linux box. And I just picked the first closest one that was around. It was a Pi that I use every day for an ongoing project that never ends. And it wasn't detected on there. Fine, unplug it, off we go. And then a little later, I had something to do on that machine, and it didn't work. It still had a screen. I could still move the mouse, but it wouldn't do anything that it was supposed to do. And I dug through all kinds of utilities and experimented and beat it to death, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And the biggest symptom was I always work on that thing with VNC, and VNC wouldn't connect with right account names and right passwords. But I was able to get in with SSH, and so I looked around for some files, and I said, "Oh, there's the problem. This file is gefoobered. Let me delete that and install a replacement." And then it just went from bad to worse. And I sent the missus to the wedding. I said, look, I'll try to be there before they say I do, but I have got to work on this because I'll walk away and forget it. But what happened is the whole Raspberry Pi desktop environment disappeared and was replaced by a raw native Debian desktop. And when you VNC, it uses different accounts and different passwords. But having seen that, I said, wait a minute, I chewed on it for a little while. I did a little bit of digging and realized the desktop environment has been gefoobered. Let me just do a fresh reinstallation of the desktop environment because that was going to be my last step. After that, I was going to have to lose the whole contents of the disk and do a fresh install and rebuild. Would have taken a couple of days, working a little bit at a time. But I replaced the desktop environment. Had to reboot it 2 times, but didn't make any changes, and it fixed it. And the command was really simple: sudo apt install xserver-org Raspberry Pi-UI-mod. So I installed 2 modules, and then I had to go into sudo raspi config and change around a system boot option to make sure it boots from the desktop or to the desktop instead of the CLI. Reboot, and everything's fixed. And then I backed it up and threw out that old hard drive. All right. I got a great so, but I'm not going to do that. So let's get into the project here. Let me take you to my slideshow. I was going to talk about the battery swap out process in my laptop. Some of you saw some of this in another show that I did recently. But we're talking about the Angie web server today. Let's go back. Leave that up for a little while. So Angie is a web server that is a drop-in replacement for NGINX. Now, the 2 big web servers out there in the world are Apache, at least historically, and then NGINX, which overtook Apache. I still run them both, and we've done shows on installing both of them. NGINX is definitely the better tool these days. It's got more features, it's got more functions, more powerful. And then again, there's a downside to that, right? It's bigger and therefore clunkier. In many cases, a little slower. NGINX was founded in 2011 by a gent named Igor Sysoev. Sysoev in English. He is in Russia. He's developed in Russia. And he made this really cool web server. And some years later, he got bought out by a company called F5 Networks. In fact, it was in 2019. Big score, $670 million back then. And he wasn't alone. Of course, he had a team of developers, and they just kept improving and improving and improving NGINX until it became what it is. Well, you may not be surprised to hear that there's a little issue going on in Russia, and everybody who was in the Russian contingent of old NGINX and continued to develop for F5, most of them have left F5 and either came to work for them in the US or came to the US and worked for other tech developer companies. But some of them said, I'm coming to the US, and because NGINX is open software, we're going to take the old NGINX project and we're going to do things to it that we always thought coulda, shoulda, woulda been done, but for whatever reasons, they weren't. And so they created a drop-in replacement for NGINX called Angie that does everything that NGINX does, plus 2, maybe 3 other things. It supports drop-ins like NGINX did. In fact, it supports the NGINX drop-ins and every drop-in that was made for them. They have provided, because they are totally insanely free and open source, they use a license called BSD2, which means anybody can use it, anybody can do anything they want with it except sell it. and it's just freely available on the project. So it's totally free. It's totally accessible. You can have the code. You can change it as long as you make the code available. That's under BSD2. So wow. And while they're at it, they've taken every premium feature, the stuff you had to buy for NGINX to make it do really cool things, and they have created that as free open source part of Angie. So it's everything that NGINX is and so much more. You have to purchase some modules for NGINX to get some real cool functions, and you have to manually install some other modules. Let me get over here. There we go. And so Angie has all of the modules that you would have to download and install, premium and free, already built into it. So it looks like this. Some of these I understand what they are by their name. Some of them I have no idea what they are. I haven't gotten that deep into it. And I'm not going to read them all to you. Let me see. If you are interested, and I think you should be, in this project, there's so much more than what I'm going to show you today. Here is the link to their project page. From there, you can get to their Git page and follow some of what I do. Their Git page is broken out into distros that it runs on and platforms that it runs on. And you can mix and match and get, if there's a platform that you've got, if you're running x86 platforms or Mac platforms or Arch, or I'm sorry, not Arch, single board computers, ARMs, it's out there. If there's a particular distro that you're running, Debian, Red Hat, or any of the specific differences, they've even made some adjustments for the specific differences. The instructions are out there and ready to go. So I picked one for Rocky and specifically for ARM. The world's a happy place. Latest stable NGINX has HTTP3 support. The current version is Angie 1.2.0, and it's got everything that the most current NGINX does. If NGINX comes out with something before Angie does, Angie comes out with it just as fast. Let me see if I can do this right. I think I can. So if you go to nginx.com and look at their products page, what's on this page is a comparison of their 3 releases. They've got open source, they've got their plus version, that's the premium version, and they've got NGINX as a service, XaaS, to run on Azure. So I'm not going to read all these pros and cons for you. You can see that the premium version, NGINX Plus, has a check mark everywhere. I think there's one that it's missing. No. So Angie does everything that's in their NGINX Plus, and it's all free and open source. So that's some pretty magical stuff there. I do want to show you one other slide. Supported distros and platforms. There's a document out there that's got all this. I reformatted it so that it would turn up on here. But notice that Alma Linux version 8 and version 9, they've got Angie available to run on x86 or on ARM. Arch is ARM architecture. The Alpine single board computer. Sorry, Alpine Linux. All kinds of different flavors of those. Same 2 platforms. You can read the list. I won't read it to you. But there's our friend Rocky. And this is, where's Red Hat? Real Red Hat should be in here. I might have pulled it off the list for space sake. But cool stuff. All right, how am I doing on time here? 15 minutes to do it. We might finish. I may run long because I want you to see this project. Oh, here is the instructions specifically for this version for running on Rocky Linux 8 or 9 on a Raspberry Pi. So let me give you that. And hopefully I've got that streamlined into something just a little easier here. So step number 1, it's not in any standard repository. You have to add a repository so that you're able to install it. So let me show you how to do that. Let me bring up Putty here. Putty. Yeah. So first of all, we have to go into a folder in our Rocky system, Rocky, that's the answer. And then we're going to edit it with sudo nano. There's a file in here called nginx.repo. And the password for Rocky is Rocky Linux, ROCKYLINUX. And it doesn't exist yet. So I'm going to put the 7 lines that I need in there. And these are all in the instructions page. Let's see, did I get the GPGP? Yeah, enabled as 1. So let's save this. Control X, yes, enter. So we don't have a repository yet, but we've got a way to make a repository to get access to it. So what we've done is we've defined a way to go get a new repository. And I don't think I needed to update anything there, so let's go and hit this. So now I'm going to sudo yum install, yes, so it doesn't prompt me, Angie, and it'll read through all the repository files in that folder and say, oh, okay, here's a repository for me to look into. Don't worry about that skipping and this error message. This doesn't take long. There, in fact, it's already done. Unable to find match. I typoed something or I missed something. I swear I've done this. Copy these 7 lines. Sudo nano nginx repo. NFV Apple nginx repo cat. The first line is Alma Linux CentOS Oracle Red OS. Alma Linux, okay, that's the first line. And the last line is the GPG key ending in ASC. Save the file. With the repo and access details defined in the nginx repo file, we install Angie sudo yum install -y Angie ANGIE. You couldn't find etsy yum repos.d whack nginx repo skipping. Am I in the right folder? cd etsy yum.repos.d. Etsy yum.repos.d. We created this new file. Fine, I'll abandon. I did this 2 times 2 weeks ago on Saturday night and again on Sunday night so that I could do 2 things. One, learn how to uninstall it all, and then how to reinstall it. Am I missing anything? Let's check one thing. Let's be smart. That's not my normal way, is it? Let me go take a look and see if I've got something copied wrong from the installation instructions. If I did, I'll fix it and we'll keep going. And if not, short show. That'll probably get deleted. I'm opening up a browser window that you can't see right now to that same link that I sent to you that I put in the chat feed. And it is not. Okay. This site can't be reached. Angie software took too long to respond. The site's down. The site is down. Let me try this. And while we're waiting for that, is it down right now.com? Okay. I'm showing another down there. Let's see if I can't get to is it down. I have a connection problem. Oh, wait a minute. I don't have a connection problem. I'm talking with you. I think. Is anybody still? Let's go look at the chat feed. Are you still here? Nobody has said. Somebody type something in. Hello, hello. Somebody type something in. Okay, you're here. You can see me. All right, then the site is down. You see everything. You see my comment. All right, good. I'm here. Let me ping something from within the server here. Ping 8.8.4.4. I can ping to the outside world. Why can't I get to is it down? I understand why I can't get to Angie. Hang on. I don't want to abandon this quite yet. I think it's my ISP. It's not allowing HTTPS through. Can I get anywhere else? Let me see if I can I get to my web server? Yes. All right. My web server is up and running. And it's not my local one. It's ADRAMADA.com. So, okay. Angie's down. Yep, there we go. All right. So the project is dead, but it's organic. It's because there is something going on in my ISP that is preventing access to it, or the site is actually down. Can anybody get to Angie.software? Try it from your place. If you can get to it, it's my ISP. If you can't get to it, it's their site or something between there and here. It's not in Russia. So that link, or if that link is up or down, shouldn't be a problem. How about their GitHub? I wonder if it's... all right, can't get there. Project page, Angie.software whack in. Let's try that. I think it's time to give this up. But the good news is, since I canceled Greg for next week, I can just pick this right up where we left off. I'll start over. We'll start by recreating that file, and off we will go. So good. That means I'll finish up on time today. That's not like me, is it? Well, I'm sorry. You checked down for everyone. It is down. Thank you. Okay. I'm not happy. I would love to show you this thing, but you've got the links in here if you want to try and experiment with me before we get there. But otherwise, I'm just going to start next week, bypass the tech news, get right into the project, and then we'll do tech news and everything else at the end. And I'm sorry, but I'm happy I don't have to look back at the show today and say, man, I really gafoobered it. I'll have to delete the show. All right, is there anything else interesting in here in my notes that I want to add or talk about? No. Did all that. Wow. Oh, it was going to be so cool. Well, let me do one more thing while you're watching. I will get rid of that file we just created. NGINX.repo. You really want to do that? Oh. Sudo. Rocky Linux. ROCKYLINUX. And it's gone. All right, so now I got a fresh place to start when we fire this guy up again. Sorry about that, guys. But again, I don't feel as bad now as I do if I screwed something up. That's such a shame. I spent so much time making it work, taking notes, doing all this stuff, and then I got it all up and running, and I said, now, if I want to undo this so they can see everything from scratch, because it's not too time-consuming, I had to learn how to get rid of all of the things that I made and set and unset. And I set everything so that it happens when it's up and every time you reboot and everything. I don't usually do that on my demos, but it's such a cool program. All right, let's see if anybody else put anything back in the world while we're here. Let me exit out of that. I don't need you anymore. See comments, site's down. It's down for me too. It's down. Can't ping it, but the name resolves. Sure, because that just comes from some DNS server. Abu Bakr Al-Haj, down for me too. Good to see you, my friend. Patricia, no worries. I was about to say I'd have to check the replay as I'm going to bed early. It's been a day, huh? Sorry to hear that. All right. Good night, Patricia Grace. Thanks for checking, and I will see y'all's. Anybody who's leaving me on Discord. What's going on with Discord? No show, no study hall on Tuesday because that's 4th of July here. Is there anything going on AMA on Monday since Mike is not doing Mike Myers AMAs anymore? Yes, there will be an AMA on Monday. New company, new rules. We used to, if a holiday fell on a Tuesday or on a Thursday, friendly old Total Seminars would say, guys, take the day off. That ship has sailed. If you want the Monday off, comes out of your vacation time. And I need that vacation time for other stuff, so I'm working Monday, and so are many of my brethren, and somebody came and said, hey, you know what? As long as you're here on Monday, fire up your computer and do AMA. All right, that's ready to go. Heck, all I got now is a closing in about a minute. Final comments, final questions? Thank you. Oh, that's interesting. So when I run the control screen here on YouTube, I don't get the hearts and flowers type stuff. I did see them scrolling by. Somebody else was able to send them. And I'm wondering if when you do that, that also automatically adds them in your chat entry, or if you had to manually go to the emoticons to put those in. I see the Monday link starring Dave. I did use my word in there. There's a point about being honest and not being dishonest, but usually if I knew Mike wasn't going to do the show and he tapped me for, cover me, I always left it, just the usual text and description. Join Mike as he talks about da 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 da, and then surprise, Mike couldn't make it. And usually that was not because I wanted to surprise anybody, but usually because the notice already came too late, and it's such a pain to go edit all the descriptions and things like that. But this one, plenty of notice, and who knows? Mike might call me. He's still with us, right? He's still working for CNL and NCG, and he might say, you know what? I'm bored this afternoon, Dave. Let me do the show, and I will happily sit back and watch. It has been a very, very busy week for Dave being on air, and I'm a camera whore and a media hog like you can't believe, but they surprised me this week with one, and I just had so much other stuff on my plate. It's probably the first time in my career at work where I said I would really rather not get on camera. I'd like to do some work. Well, that's not your option. Do it. All right, well, let's wind things up then. Thank you. Sorry about the goofer. I guess that's probably something I should have tested before I started the show, but that's one that I just never really envisioned. So we'll close her down. This was fun. This was quick. It was easy. There's lots going on in the industry. We've got stuff to talk about next week. Hopefully, Angie.software is up again next week, and we can do a really nice project, but I'll have another one in my back pocket if there's nothing going on. So with that, I wish you a great rest of the week. Please take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy, and if at all possible, please call or visit your parents. And never forget, you know this one, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have are you and I. And with that, good night. I will see you on ADRAMADA next Thursday, AMAs next week. And until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eep, op, org, ah, ah.